Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to Global Atheist News, our weekly report on how religion has impacted humanity over the last 7 days. Dateline, 15th of October, 2022. This week's headlines. Nika Shakarami's mother says her daughter was murdered. Mahsa Amini's family are receiving death threats. Iranian authorities try to cover up another teen protester's death. 2 members of Iran's security forces were killed. There is a crackdown at the border crossing of Iran. Germany calls for sanctions over the violent crackdown. The UK sanctions the morality police over the violent crackdown. 3 Jewish women file suit against Kentucky's abortion bans. Students walk out alleging LGBTQ discrimination at religious schools. Protestant pastors say the economy is hurting their churches. A $100 million ad campaign wants to fix Jesus's image. Videos posted online show an Iranian teenager protesting hours before her death. Nika Shakarami, 16, is seen standing on a dumpster and burning her headscarf in Tehran on the 20th of September as others chant slogans against the Islamic Republic. She later disappeared after telling a friend she was being chased by police. Mrs. Shakarami has accused security forces of murdering her daughter, but officials have said she died after being thrown from a building that was under construction, possibly by workmen. Last week, Iranian state TV broadcast blurry footage showing a teenage girl whom it identified as Nika walking down an alley and entering a building through a door. But Mrs. Shakarami told BBC Persian that the person in the video was not her daughter. Another source close to the family also said that they did not walk like Nika. Mrs. Shakarami also alleged that her sister Atash and brother Mohsen had been forced into making false statements about Nika's death while they were in detention. They threatened to detain my brother's 4-year-old child, she said. Mohsen was seen on TV speaking against the current protests as someone off camera seems to whisper to him, "Say it, you scumbag." Atash was meanwhile seen saying that Nika was killed falling from a building, and they were released after making these statements. Tehran judiciary official Mohammad Shahriari was cited by state media as saying that a post-mortem examination showed Nika suffered multiple fractures in the pelvis, head, upper and lower limbs, arms and legs, which indicate that the person was thrown from a height. However, Nazreen Shakarami said this was not true. "I saw my daughter's body myself. The back of her head showed she had suffered a very severe blow as her skull had caved in. That's how she was killed." She said a forensic report found that she had been killed on the day she joined the protests by a blunt force trauma to her head. A death certificate issued by a cemetery in Tehran, which was obtained by BBC Persian, states that Nika died after suffering multiple injuries caused by blows with a hard object. See these videos.
no cinemas or bars and very few televisions. Most women wear the black cloak, the chador. All of this sums up the attitude vision of what Islamic Republic. The streets are full of police.
The Shah pulled the chador down by force. These people are putting it up by force. We were fought for any, but now we are for freedom.
A lot of women realized under this new Islamic Republic, the new government, they will lose their right. We had a discussion in the house of my aunt the night before the demonstration that she wanted to go to this demonstration with a black scarf to show that she's sad of this new situation. At that time, we didn't have the morality police. We had only the committees. They started to control the women at the street. They started to write, and in every shop, it was a sign, the women who have no scarf, they are not allowed to come in. This action is the beginning of the courage that the women showed, because everybody knew I am important. I can do something individual.
The family of Mahsa Amini, the 22-year-old Kurdish woman whose death in police custody 3 weeks ago sparked these protests across Iran, say they have received death threats and have been warned not to get involved in the demonstrations. Mahsa became a symbol of Iranian repression after her arrest by the morality police, who accused her of wearing her hijab improperly. Her face and her story are now known around the world. Our family have been under immense pressure from the Islamic Republic's officials, so we don't talk to human rights organizations or channels outside of Iran and inform anyone from the outside world about her passing, her cousin Irfan Mortezai said in a meeting across the border. Irfan is a Peshmerga fighter for Kamala, an exiled Iranian Kurdish opposition party now based in Iraq. For years, since long before Mahsa's death, he has been trying to bring down the Islamic Republic. The Iranian government have blamed the latest unrest on such outside influences. Mahsa Amini's family in Iran, including her father and uncle, have repeatedly denied supporting such Kurdish opposition groups, which Iran accuses of separatism. Government manipulation of information about the killing of teenage girls during protests and forcing families to make confessions have outraged many in Iran. Chief of the Alborz Province Justice Department, Hossein Fazeli, claimed Thursday evening that 16-year-old Serena Esmailzadeh had jumped from a neighbor's rooftop and killed herself and her death was unrelated to protests. The deceased had a history of overdosing with pills to kill herself. Less than a day later, state media released a video showing Serena's mother, which is now disputed by people who say she is not her mother, but an actor, denying that her daughter was killed in the protests and saying she had a history of attempted suicide in what appeared to be an interview in which a reporter tried to lead her with his questions. The 16-year-old YouTuber died on the way to hospital after being severely beaten in the head with batons while protesting the killing of Mahsa Amini. She had joined a protest at Karaj, a large city half an hour from the capital, Tehran. Her injury and death were verified by Amnesty International. Sources close to the family have said on social media that over 50 security forces were present at her funeral. They also say the family have not been allowed to hire a lawyer and are under pressure to say she committed suicide. 2 members of Iran's security forces have been killed in continuing protests against the authorities, state media have said. One member of the Basij paramilitary militia was killed by rioters with a gunshot at one of the protest sites in Tehran, according to Basij News, the official website run by the Basij organization, the paramilitary morality police organization. A member of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps was also killed on Saturday during protests in Sanandaj, the capital of the Kurdistan province. And at least 20 members of the IRGC, Basij, and police forces have been killed over the past 3 weeks of protests, the state media says. See this video. Soran is 32 and lives in Saqqez, the home city of Mahsa Amini. He has crossed into Iraqi Kurdistan to work, but he questions whether he'll return home. The protests are growing and life is hard. He says there hasn't been any internet for 3 weeks now due to restrictions imposed by the Iranian authorities, which have cracked down violently on the protests. It happened a few days ago when I was protesting, he says. The regime beat me in the back, they kicked me and used truncheons to hit me. They shot my friend and others too, all because I took part in the demonstrations. But when asked whether this would lead to the collapse of the Islamic Republic, his answer was clear. No, the regime won't collapse. It can't be changed. They are strong and they keep killing people. We will never stop, and so they will keep killing us. It's crazy and it's corrupt. Nobody cares about us. The outside world says it supports Iran, but nobody does. We are being tortured and killed every day. Farhad is 36 and from Sanandaj, where there have been heavy protests and deadly clashes with security forces. The Kurdish human rights group Hengel reports that at least 32 civilians have been killed by government forces and 1,540 others injured in Kurdish-populated Western Iran. But Farhad believes the death toll is far higher. At least 20 were killed last night. he says. Some say as many as 40. More than 70 were arrested, but we can't talk about it because we'll be killed. Iranian intelligence are always watching. They secretly film. They imprisoned my brother in jail for political reasons. These protests are getting bigger, but they won't bring down the regime. No, it's strong, controlling. The Islamic Republic will definitely survive. Germany's foreign minister has called for action against those responsible for the violent crackdown on protests in Iran. Annalena Baerbock said Germany would ensure the European Union froze assets and imposed entry bans. She described those who beat up women and girls on the street as standing on the wrong side of history. EU foreign ministers are expected to decide on sanctions on the 17th of October, according to Reuters news agency. Speaking to a German newspaper, Baerbock also criticized those who condemn to death people who want nothing other than to live free. She told Iranians, "We stand by you and will continue to do so." The UK has imposed sanctions on Iran's morality police and other top security figures in response to the country's violent crackdown on protesters. The Foreign Office has now sanctioned the entire morality police force, as well as other key public figures. They are banned from coming to the UK, and any assets held here are frozen. 3 Jewish women in Kentucky have filed a lawsuit arguing that their religious rights are being violated by a set of state laws that ban most abortions. The lawsuit, filed in Jefferson Circuit Court in Louisville, is the third such suit brought by Jewish organizers or individuals since the US Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. In all 3 suits, the first in Florida, the second in Indiana, the Jewish plaintiffs claim their state is infringing on their religious freedom by imposing a Christian understanding of when life begins. Under current Kentucky laws, the life begins at the moment of fertilization. Another law bans abortion after 6 weeks, when cardiac activity is first detected. Most Jews believe abortion is allowed and in some cases is even required. Judaism has never defined life beginning at conception, the suit said, adding that millennia of commentary from Jewish scholars has reaffirmed Judaism's commitment to reproductive rights. What's distinct about the latest suit is that all 3 of the Jewish women require in vitro fertilization to become pregnant, but are afraid of beginning the procedure without greater clarity about what the law will permit them to do with excess frozen embryos. The suit claims that the women must spend exorbitant fees to keep their embryos frozen indefinitely, and they are unsure if they will face felony charges if they dispose of them. If you're Jewish, you're having a very narrowly defined idea of when life begins imposed on you, and that is incongruent with our religious beliefs of when life begins, said Lisa Sobel, one of the women in the lawsuit. Billboards with messages like "Jesus let his hair down too" and "Jesus went all in too" have been posted in major markets like New York City and Las Vegas. John Lee is one of the chief architects of the He Gets Us campaign, a $100 million effort to redeem Jesus's brand from the damage done by his followers, especially those who say one thing and then do another. Launched earlier this year, ads featuring black and white online videos about Jesus as a rebel, an activist, or a host of a dinner party have been viewed more than 300 million times. A new survey of 1,000 Protestant pastors finds that half are concerned that the economy is hurting their churches. In the survey, 52% said the economy was having a negative impact on their churches. That's up 15 percentage points from 2021. Queer students like Veronica Bonifacio Penales, who have been protesting religious universities' policies they call discriminatory and homophobic, often find themselves confronting the same question. Why would you go to a Christian school if you are LGBTQ? For many of these students, this fight at religiously affiliated universities is part of a larger push happening from within Christianity towards more inclusive beliefs to, as activists at Seattle Pacific University put it, deconstruct harmful theologies on sexuality, gender, and queerness. And as they've reminded their thousands of social media followers, you can be queer and Christian. This week's Free Thought Hour was to feature Linda Russell, but sadly she has called in sick with a sore throat and inability to speak. That wouldn't make a good show. So tune in to watch Tercia, my co-host, and I maintain the standards on our own. See what happens. And it's free. Don't forget to watch Global Atheist News Review, our spin-off show where a panel of opinionated people get a chance to express their views on this very news. The GAN team will be back with our weekly news report next week. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, and set the notifications. This has been Global Atheist News. Thank you for watching.